Hello again. Life has been so busy lately, so I thought it was time to chill out to one of my favourite games. For this playthrough, I wanted to know, can you beat Spyro the Dragon without attacking enemies? The goals for this run are simple. Beat Gnasty Gnorc, attack as few enemies as possible, and collect as much treasure and as many dragons as I can. Now I want to be as peaceful as possible, so I will try to make it as far as I can without attacking any enemies. Even if they can survive a hit of damage, I don't want to cause them any pain. I will be attacking smaller creatures to keep Sparks alive, and if I accidentally kill an enemy, I will either quit out of the game or find a way to undo my mistake. Now this playthrough was inspired by WayofLoci. A couple of years ago, I watched Loki's no-killing playthrough, and our results will be quite similar. So please consider watching his playthrough as well. With all that said, let's try and be peaceful. The quest for peace had begun. Nearly every enemy in this game will contain some type of gem, but sadly, we're not allowed to hurt any of them during this playthrough. The gems in the homeworld were abundant, and after collecting all the treasure and all the dragons I could find,
cool flash!
Town Square was our first official level. These bulls are the first enemies that can actually hurt us, so it took a lot of self-control to not punch them back. But at the same time, it was quite calming watching enemies do their own thing. Dodging the bulls was quite easy, and there was a generous serving of treasure to be found. Once all the dragons had been freed, we headed into Stone Hill for another adventure. Again, so many gems were just lying on the ground or tucked away inside chests. The shepherds were quite rude, and the blue thief was mocking us from a distance, but sadly, we had to let him live. Dark Hollow was next. Most enemies were completely avoidable, and despite the big boys looking scary, slipping past them was no problem. A few gems were tucked away in the pit with the big Gnorc, and we did get hit a few times while trying to squeeze past. But overall, Dark Hollow was a chill place to visit. But would things become more toasty with our first boss fight? Now the real boss of this level are these evil dogs. They're a real pain to avoid, and they are committed to squishing my boy Spyro. But when it was finally time to confront Toasty, it was a bit underwhelming. We can't move forward without attacking Toasty, and there was no way to get over the door. So this level ended sooner than we expected. But could we get some gems from Sunny Flight? Now there are enemies flying in planes as well as driving the trains. And destroying the barrels sadly kills the Gnorc driver. So flying through arches and smashing chests was the only pacifist option, giving us only 120 gems. With 626 gems and 16 dragons, we were all set for the Peacekeeper's world. The Peacekeeper's world is the perfect place for a pacifist to visit. There's lots of treasure to find, and the friendly Gnorcs even broke a few for me. But the giant boulder was blocking our way. Thankfully, I beat the Gnorc to the cannon, and the rock was no more. The thieves continued to mock my pacifist ways, but I remained calm and headed off to Dry Canyon. There are so many chests to destroy, but the enemy numbers were starting to ramp up, and the vultures were being a pain. They were very sneaky. But thankfully, not every enemy was in the mood for a fight. Collecting gems was a delicate dance. But we secured the booty and headed off to Clifftown. The local mums were cooking up a gem stew, but they were quite sensitive about their cooking. We carefully navigated the cliffs, and after a proper beating, we rescued Marco the liar.
You've reached the highest point in Clifftown.
Are you sure about that? We did one last search for missing treasure, and after leaving the desert behind, maybe the ice cavern would chill us down. I was feeling rebellious, so I decided to skip to the end of the level and do it back to front. There were some tight enemy placements on the ice, but grabbing the gems was easier than I thought. We did get bullied a little bit, but it was quite easy to navigate the caves. and we returned home with a fat stack of gems. Dr. Shemp was our next boss fight. Now this level is interesting because we have our first enemy that kills itself. This automatically adds gems to our collection. It doesn't matter how far you run, the gems will fly towards you, so we cannot escape them. Now technically, I didn't attack this enemy, but I wanted to see how far I could go without using gems from dead enemies. So, I grabbed any gems I could, and then I returned home. But there were still a few gems to grab in Night Flight, and lucky for us, there were no enemies in this flying section, so the full 300 gems were ours. With 1,938 gems, 31 dragons, and no dead enemies, things were looking pretty good. But everything was about to change. Welcome to Magic Crafters. It was quite a shock when one of the spinning chests launched into the air and killed an enemy. But after finding a safer angle, the crisis was averted. The druids were being jerks as usual, and the supercharge did not go as planned. Our gem collection was growing big, but could we find even more treasure in Alpine Ridge? Oh boy, this level was cursed. Everything started off normal. But would things remain normal for long?
Of course not!
First of all, the door to the next section would not open. Normally, the druid lowers it up and down. But no, it was locked shut. We tried jumping over, but it was too high. After respawning, the door was down for just a few seconds and then it was up again. There was still a small portion of the level that we can clear. But these sneaky druids were up to something. Now maybe it was a one-off glitch, but after restarting the level, the door was still stuck. And the enemies were acting very strange. After quitting and coming back a third time, the stairs stopped working, and the druid would not raise them up again. I had no clue what was going on. So let's go and have some fun in the high caves. Now the caves have a bit of a spider problem, but a huge bounty of treasure was within reach. So many chests were waiting to be destroyed, but another annoying druid ruined my fun. No matter how fast Spyro went, the druid would always block the path. Even with the help of Supercharge, it seems that there is an invisible wall in the way that you can't get past without killing that druid. After 40 minutes of trying to get past this silly green man and his wall, I gave up. Maybe Wizard Peak would be druid free. And to my delight, I was correct. But the wizards were just as cheeky. They did not like us collecting gems, but our determination took us to new heights, and no wizard could ever stand between us and our treasure. But the big boy sure can. We slowly climbed our way to the end of the level. We could finally return home. The next boss was Blowhard. The loot was quite generous at the start of this level, but we could not progress any further without attacking the boss. I really wanted to keep exploring, but my pacifist nature stopped me, and the ledge was too far for our small wings to reach. So we said our goodbyes and returned to the skies. We were able to collect everything apart from the planes, so 180 gems were added to the bank. But I was still mad. What the heck was going on in Alpine Ridge? This one scene shows it all. Flying enemies on the left, broken staircase in the middle, and a locked door on the right. What is the cause of all this mischief? And then an epiphany entered my mind. Was it something to do with the frame rate? I lowered the frame rate from 60 frames per second to 30 frames per second. And just like magic, the door started working again. As soon as I switched back to 60 frames per second, the door broke. So with the power of 30 frames per second, we were able to break through the druid blockade once and for all. And we were rewarded with a huge bounty of treasure. With Alpine Ridge defeated, we returned home with a huge wallet full of gems. But this is where the run officially falls apart. Tuco is a violent man, and he will not let us use the balloon without collecting 5 dragon eggs. Those dragon eggs are in the hands of thieves, so he is demanding that we sacrifice the lives of 5 thieves to progress. It was heartbreaking. So, before we get our claws soaked in blood, here was the total for my pure pacifist playthrough. 3,412 gems, 44 dragons, 36% overall completion, and no enemies hurt at all. This was the best I could do without harming a single enemy. But the run must go on. What is the minimum number of murders we can complete the game with? Lucky for us, Tuco loves the idea of murder and offers to help us track the thieves down. He suggested checking out Wizard Peak for the eggs we missed. So off we went to murder some thieves. But to my surprise, a big Gnorc appeared and he killed the small wizard boy next to him. And then a crystal orb dropped. Now these crystal orbs only drop if you have already collected a gem from an enemy, but I didn't kill anything, right? Well, it turns out that the small wizard boys were there the whole time when I first entered the level. And while I was collecting treasure, the big Gnorcs wiped them out. So when I was running past to collect treasure, I was actually collecting blood gems. I had no way of knowing this at the time. 4 of the gems I collected were from the corpses of enemies. I can't rewind time, so we will keep a separate counter of blood gems and review this at the end of the run. Well, I finally reached the thief and I took the shot, and our first unavoidable murder was done. But Tuco wanted more blood.
Whoa! Damn, man, look at that, look! Whew.
And he offered to fly us straight to the next thief. I had never seen this in a playthrough before. It was so cool. But the eggs kept rolling in. And after 2 more assassination jobs, Tuco was finally happy enough to let us on board. It cost the lives of 5 thieves, but we could finally head towards the Beastmaker's world. We had arrived in the land of beasts. But the hogs in this land were brutal. We tried to slip past them, but a blue blood gem entered our hand. It turns out these hogs are prone to killing themselves. So, a new strategy was needed. It took a bit of finesse, but we made it to the dragon without the death of any hogs. But death is always around the corner. But with a bit of practice, no hogs were harmed. With the 4 little piggies all safe and sound, Spyro collected all the gems on the ground. He bravely entered the world of treetops and avoided taking damage with his sick dragon hops. Avoiding the monkeys was a bit of a dance, but the small banana boys could really pack a punch. After safely disposing of the spinning chests, the monkeys were all tuckered out, and we could finally use the supercharge. After making it across on our first attempt with no issues at all, we gathered all the remaining treasure we could find. But 2 words should incite fear in any Spyro player's heart. Misty Bog. Everything wants to kill you in this level. The plants have no chill, and the Gnorcs want to skin you alive. Drowning yourself is an effective way of avoiding combat. But the hogs were running wild again and causing a lot of death. By getting rid of sparks, we tried to weave past all the blood gems on the ground, but the hogs were unrelenting in their assault. So we cooked up a new plan. Let's drown our way to safety. We could reach the safety of the dragon without the risk of being run over by a hog. After scouting the land, we went on a gem rescue mission. Some gems were hard to grab, and a cursed flame nearly caused another death. But thankfully, the gem never entered our inventory, so we are all good. But upstairs there were more gems, and a line of enemies waiting to destroy me. It took quite a few failures, but eventually we pulled through with 1 scrap of health left. One final room remained, but luck was on our side, and with all the dragons and treasure secured, we could visit Terrace Village. Lightning was very popular in this world, and it was rather chaotic trying to navigate the level without killing anything. But my pacifism was finally rewarded with a skill point. A few more gems needed picking up, but we had a flight to catch. The archers and chests were the only safe option on this fly-through, so 120 gems was the best we could do. But maybe Metalhead would have the gems we need. But before the level could even start, blood gems were already flying into our hands. There was no way to progress without triggering a blood gem, so I decided to leave this level alone. So, our results for Beast Makers were less than optimal. 4,664 gems, 55 dragons, and 5 dead thieves. But will we have enough gems to make it to the end? We have arrived at the Dreamweaver's world. Now to keep progressing through the game, we will need at least 6,000 gems in total. Will we be able to find enough? Now Dreamweavers introduces a new enemy type called a Fool. They are invincible, and hitting them normally changes something in the level. But attacking them is sadly not an option. Lucky for us, the whirlwind gave a bit of extra height and we didn't have to hurt the Fool. Collecting gems was becoming more hazardous, and despite reaching the cannon, there was no way to commandeer it without using violence. This means we can't collect the treasure upstairs, and the last flight level would be out of reach. But let's see what Lofty Castle has in store for us. Enemies were super easy to avoid. Our gliding skills helped free some fairies, and the supercharge helped us reach the last of the treasure. A very easy level to navigate. But the dark passage was calling out to us. Most of the fools here are on a time cycle, so by waiting for the best moment, we can avoid most enemies. But the enemy placement was getting a little trickier, and we were systematically eaten alive by the demon dogs. But again, timing is everything, and after carefully weaving my way through this nightmare, we made it out with a decent stash of gems. The next boss fight was Jack. But the very first section needs the help of a fool to get on the ledge. I couldn't find any way up without hurting a fool, so sadly this level would have to be skipped. Our last hope was the Haunted Towers. There were a handful of gems on the floor, but the living armor stopped us from moving forward. They track your move with great precision, and I've never been able to find a way around them without dying. So looking at our stats, things are looking pretty grim. I picked up every gem I could find without hurting enemies, but we could not reach the 6,000 gems we needed. But maybe a few blood gems could help us out. After heading back to Dr. Shemp's world, we let the Gnorc boys run off the cliff. Now remember, we are not attacking them in any way. They are using their own free will to run off the cliff and give us gems. We raided as much as we could. And after looting a few more precious gems, Dr. Shemp was sadly still blocking our way forward. We still needed about 450 gems. Could we find them in Metalhead? The metal monkeys had an unfortunate accident, and there were heaps of gems tucked away in chests. And after some more monkeying around, the boss fight could begin. Now Metalhead is a great boss. We don't have to do anything. Given enough time, he will destroy himself and the enemies around him. After waiting a while, Metalhead decided to power down. We could now gather the last of the gems in the level, and I was chuffed to see that we had reached our 6,000 gem goal. We were finally ready to take on Gnasty's world. Alright, there are 3 levels to go, let's do it. After making some quick cash, we headed into Gnorc Cove. The platforming was pretty chill, and there were plenty of chests waiting to be destroyed. Most enemies didn't care that we were there, and with some charging, and some weaving, things were looking pretty smooth. After goading the barrel boys into attacking, we found a way to squeeze past. But these two Gnorcs sent us straight to the Shadow Realm. After some creative backtracking, the cove was clear, and Twilight Harbor was our penultimate level. Honestly, this level was brutal as a pacifist. Machine gun Gnorcs were so aggressive. But we found our groove, and with a bit of luck, no treasure was out of reach. The final stretch of this level was something else. Even though I thought we had made it, they found a way to shoot us. Speed was the key to survival, and we barely made it to the end with our lives. The time had come. Let's take down the big Gnorc himself. Gnasty was perched up on the platform, and no matter what we tried, there was no way to get up without resorting to violence. We had no choice but to end the lives of two thieves to keep going. And the final chase was on. After collecting the last of the treasure, we partook in some rolling and some trolling, and with one final breath, Gnasty was defeated. There was one more dragon to rescue back at the Nexus, but our adventure was nearly done. Since gems from dead enemies were essential for making it this far, I figured, why not? Why don't we go back and collect some more? The Cannon Boys and Peacekeepers were very helpful when it came to collecting blood gems. They killed their own kind without mercy. Took a little bit of patience, but the Boars and Beastmakers fell into the water, adding some blood gems to our counter. It took a lot of finesse, but in Misty Bog, I was able to orchestrate a series of accidents. I feel like the most evil pacifist right now, but technically speaking, this is 100% peaceful behavior. But just for fun, I wanted to give Haunted Towers one more go. I wondered if it was possible to somehow skip this night by getting up on this ledge. It seemed like a fool's errand, but then it actually worked. I was gobsmacked. I have never been able to get past this night before. We wasted no time, and we collected everything we could find. The fairy's kiss allowed us to break down the door, but the big boy was blocking our precious treasure. It was possible to squeeze past the offensive knights, but trying to reach the level exit left us trapped with no escape. I wondered if it was possible to get some gems that we missed at the level start, and with a fresh kiss and a frantic sprint, we made it in just the nick of time. But the supercharged section was next, and we were so excited that we overshot the ledge. We tried again, and again, and again, but we kept failing. And after our final life ticked away, the dreaded game over screen appeared. This meant we had to pull off that tricky jump again. I spent the next 40 minutes pulling my hair out trying to get up on this stupid ledge, and after about 100 deaths, I was given a second chance. I had no lives left, and only one shot left to make the super jump. Now I didn't want to spend another hour trying to get back here if I failed. So full disclosure, I used the 99 lives cheat to give me a fighting chance. But even with 99 lives, I choked. I hit the enemy, which forces me to quit the game and to do it all again. With a fresh stack of 99 lives, I got to work. And after 9 more failed attempts, I was lucky enough to make that horrible jump again. We burned through a few lives trying to get this treasure chest, but once the spoils were secure, we had finally reached the secret area. There were a few gems on the ground, and a generous supply of chests up top. But even with the fairy's fire breath, there was no escape without violence. So sadly, this locked chest was unobtainable. So, with all things said and done, how did we go? Well, in total, we had to kill 7 thieves to take down Gnasty Gnorc. We collected a total of 7,597 gems during our playthrough. 125 of these gems came from Gnasty Gnorc, and 284 gems came from enemies we did not kill. A total of 77 out of 80 dragons were rescued, and a total game completion of 74% was achieved. Now, despite the forced killing of 7 thieves, I think this was a really good result. I was impressed at how much of the game you can complete without resorting to violence. And despite some frustrating moments, it was an enjoyable playthrough. Well, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to playing through the rest of the trilogy as a pacifist soon. But until then, I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I'll see you in another video. God bless.